pie in the face and dumping water on it. Everything is a little worse. They're both on the same.
I did. I've been out of town, but I haven't had a chance to read it. I saw it come through. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's a
The
lot of.
one, I'm old enough to say this in the 90s.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't want to do it until I got talked.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just been out of town. I just got back yesterday.
Yada year, there was, oh, no. Yes.
Yeah,
there's some
I
Yada
just
year.
had time to set this up, so if you wanted to see, you could share it.
But his other, the other ones were coming up in the Angels, he had to trade one. Because all we would have been, the other ones would have been the deeper leagues because of the, you know, the middle, but like you, all three were being catcher.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Should I, do you want me to promote him to present?
Something in the jeans.
Yeah.
No, he's probably not in a position.
Okay, well, you, they're over there, so.
Yeah.
Anybody fill out a report on that?
No, I threw him into a tizzy because he likes to
No.
bury the fire.
Oh.
He's
Yeah.
very anal about that.
I said for that.
He's gonna be like,
bunch of what pipes, like tricklers they were working on. I'm like, oh, they must have, like, oh, yeah, that photo, like someone crushed it with a fork.
He hit the door.
Yeah.
Hit the door.
Yeah.
Door.
Yeah.
hi, Tom.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good day. Well, I think.
Good. I got your drawings. They
Good.
look good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Made my trip.
Oh, you made, and you survived?
Florida for the first time, yeah.
Yeah. Did you stop and eat or not?
No, we had a plan. We were at that casino
Okay.
there, and then we went out to Friday Harbor.
Oh, okay.
And, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've never been on one of them ferries.
Oh, really?
Oh, those are cool.
Yeah.
I worked in Hope Harbor when I was
Yeah.
a kid as a laborer on building all this naval base housing up
Yeah.
there for a long time. I stayed up there. I loved it up there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice spot.
Yeah.
Oh, so you, naval base, were they built in Anacortes or?
No, this was in the early 2000s. They were just adding more
Down
housing,
in Anacortes.
base housing,
Okay.
yeah, on Oak Harbor up there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I just stayed at, that's what I did when I was young. So I just stayed wherever they would send me out.
I have over here, Christine, I have you over there, Dave.
You're not here. You've got.
I watched,
Alan.
so I can look it up. It was the Super Bowl. The Giants picked up the Patriots. When the Patriots were undefeated. I remember watching that Super Bowl at the.
How you doing?
That Sunday evening.
Nice.
That was big. And that bar was packed. It was full of cars.
I bet, yeah.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, it's close, but-
You can climb up on Saturday.
Yeah.
See it?
Hey, that's gonna make it hard for Dave to get in.
How you doing, Mayor? How's it going?
So far, so good.
Good
Good to see you.
to see you too.
I wish I could have recorded the voice coming out of this last night. I think it was Elf.
Bigfoot, Sasquatch. It's gotta be over there somewhere. Was he knocking wood knocks at you?
It was so loud. It did sound like our woods were haunted up on the top of it. I'm like, those were elk, I'm like getting it. They're trying to find each other. Oh, God, no, that's true. I'm like, cougars don't make things. They hunt inside. The only thing you hear is
There, I don't know that Paul's gonna show up,
but.
but he's right here. So then Paul's right
There you
there.
go.
I think every, right?
It was so
I mean,
loud.
next week, I brought Christy.
It's because they were all scattered.
I was gonna.
Somewhere along the way. Okay, well, that's the problem. I mean, I've been. My son. Well, he loves it, and then I know his friends.
Yeah.
Their mom.
You see this?
Yeah.
This was like that game.
I'm thinking about doing a birthday after his friend Warren rented that back. I didn't even know it existed. Rented that room and parties there. I think I'm doing that this next year.
There are plans for that one. They're up here, just to make it look nice.
But still, I mean, it's if you're on, it's next, not gonna go fried.
Right, yeah.
That's a great spot. I love it. And so I'm definitely gonna utilize that.
I think.
My side, Dave.
Yeah, we did it this way.
You need help.
Dave needs.
Yeah.
I did not pass it.
I was hoping that you needed to sign it, so you get to walk all the way up there.
Oh,
Anyone
wait,
need to
over.
Come on, it's like a
And you didn't want
obstacle
something to
course.
write on. Okay.
All right, go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Thank you guys very much, all of you, for coming tonight. Whose agenda are we following here?
Oh, sorry.
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Oh, roll call, pledge allegiance.
Are we doing pledge?
That's in the agenda.
Oh, where? You guys like to stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't print off an agenda.
I will find one.
It's printing.
Perfect. All right, so Richard and Patrick are going to present the initial findings and review the data gathered during the recent site visit and discussion with Fire District 2 and Stevenson City Council. So take it away.
Hi.
Do you need
Yeah,
Great.
we have a PowerPoint, but before maybe we get to it, I don't know if it still shows Patrick when you.
It does, yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Well, Patrick's online. Wave, Patrick. And he's in the background there. He'll show up here soon. Anyway, we just, both Patrick and I were on a project in Idaho, Sud Valley, and we both flew back today. So I got the SeaTac around noon and drove down here and wanted to be with you folks. And it's good to be with you tonight. And Patrick flew down to Orange County and he's zooming in tonight. So, I think the one thing you should know off the bat is we don't have the strategic plan all formed up and written up quite yet. We still have that yet to do. And we still need staff to review some elements of it to make sure that we got the nomenclature right and everything looks buttoned up before we kind of present that in a more formal way. But what I wanted to do tonight is present to you kind of a summary of some of the things that we found during the strategic planning process and talk about our process and what we discovered in that process. So what slide are we on? There's that one. Okay. So we go to the next one. So as you know, Patrick and I were the primary associates for the strategic planning process. And we had a really excellent time working with staff and volunteers to put this together. And we've been both with ESCI now about 2 years. Patrick has a background from California, Orange County, California, where he's been deputy chief and then he was fire chief of Huntington Beach. And then he went and did an interim back to Orange County Fire Authority. Then he went down to Florida to do an interim fire chief job. My career has mostly been in Oregon, Washington. Started off in Oregon as a volunteer firefighter and then was up in Washington and was fire chief for Anacortes for 22 years, retired in 2018, and did a couple interim jobs, one in Oregon and one in South Pierce Fire and Rescue. So that's our background in a nutshell. ESCI is a company that's been around for 47 years. It started in Wilsonville, Oregon, by a gentleman by the name of Jack Snook, who is still on the board with Emergency Services Consulting. The company is now majority owned actually by the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And it has two divisions, the Public Safety and Strategy Division, and then the Human Capital side of things, Public Safety and Strategy Division. And that's both Patrick and I work on the Public Safety side of things. Human Capital works on recruitment for positions, testing processes, those sorts of things. So we have about 80 associates across the country. We do work in the US and Canada, and the company all total has about 20 paid employees, of which I'm one of them now this last year. And Patrick is an associate consultant with us. So that's that in a nutshell. So the project that you asked us to put together is a strategic plan, a 3 to 5 year strategic plan give the department direction on what they need to do or what direction they ought to be moving. Develop a mission, vision, and value statement for the fire department, and culminate all that feedback into a goal-driven plan, something that can be easily implemented and achieved in that period of time. I say easily, maybe not so easily, that it's never that easy, but we do lay out the themes, the goals, the objectives, and the task for an agency to be able to implement it. It is labor intensive. It does take time, energy, and work, and it takes staff time and volunteer time to put one together and to fully implement that. In your circumstance, you may choose to select certain things that are going to be more important for your community to implement first. Now, we recommend in there a phasing based on our recommendations, but you don't have to follow that. It's purely up to you how you want to implement the plan and what's most important for your organization. So that being said, the process. So we did an internal stakeholder survey. We sent it out for about 3 weeks, I think it was, Chief. You got the word out to the volunteer group, and we got 13 responses back, and culminated those responses, which will be included as part of the report. And first off, there will be a summary, then there will be in the background, there will be all the details of that summary. We also thought, because typically when we do a strategic plan, we do that with a volunteer group or the staff, whoever wants to participate within the organization. We do that over a 2-day process. But considering you've got volunteers that have regular jobs, they don't have the time to sit through 2 days of excruciating pain with 2 consultants. We decided what we're going to do is just be available to meet with volunteers and take an input and hear what their thoughts and opinions are. We did that under kind of this lens and umbrella of a good, better, different. What's good about the department? Describe what's good. What can be different? What is currently working but should be better? I mean to say what should be better, and then what should the department stop doing or start doing? What's different? So those 3 types of lenses we ran through with the volunteer group. In the individual meetings. We had, how many folks did we have at the volunteer drill? I can't recall now. I think it was 9, roughly 9 folks that attended. And then we had about 3 or 4 people that dropped in at different times throughout the day at other opportunities. Then we also had a meeting with the leadership. So we met with the chief and I'm sorry, forgot your name. Sorry. Wayne, yes. Wayne and Gordy, thank you. We met with you folks, and then we went through the similar exercise. Then we had, in this room here, we had community stakeholder meeting. We had quite a few folks, and that was a lively group and engaged. And we did the good, better, different process there as well. And then we also, as part of that, we affirmed some of the statements that should be incorporated into the mission, vision, values for both the internal group and the community group. And so what Patrick and I did is we took that information and we developed a draft mission, vision, values for the fire department for you to review and consider, and then adapt as you see fit, talk to whoever you see fit. And then what we would recommend is you formally adopt that as an organization. So that's the process. And before I jump forward, maybe I will just say, Patrick, is there anything you would like to add?
I think that's a good start, a good overview. We're in good spot right now.
Okay, all right. So during our processes, by the way, when we do that good, better, different, it avoids that group think that typically happens, or you with a group of people, there may be one or two people that like to talk and that can intimidate others from talking. So that good, better, different somewhat equalizes that, and it gets rid of the groupthink sort of approach. So it's really an independent sort of exercise. Then we kind of bring it together and meld it all together. So from that, we had several themes that we derived from those exercises from our notes. The first one is our people. And that means the internal people of the fire department, what we need to do to make improvements for the internal people in the fire department. And this is just some of the things that we have. This is not the entire list of recommendations that we have going forward. The first one is implement a health and safety program. In Washington State, there's a specific statute, 296-365. It's a Washington Administrative Code. It has a lot of safety requirements. There's also vertical standards related to respiratory protection, and there's a lot of requirements related to that as well. And so the state requires that you have a safety program, you have quarterly meetings, you have a safety committee in the fire department. So there's a lot of different requirements that need to be implemented. And what we would recommend or have you consider is first of all, clear the immediate hazards that are within the fire station and conduct a safety audit. And what I mean by the immediate hazards are some of the tripping things. They're laying on the floor, putting the bunker gear in the racks, buying racks to put the bunker gear into, those sorts of things, putting the chains up on the wall so that someone doesn't run in, end up falling, tripping, and then creating a hazard there. So just some real basic sort of things like that. The other thing we notice is all the cords in the fire stations are from wall plugs across the floor, plugged into apparatus, and they really should be mounted professionally from the electrician down from the ceiling, down and then hanging and plugged in the apparatus, so you don't have those tripping hazards there as well. So also something you might want to consider, the Washington State has a free safety audit. There's two branches in labor industries. One is their enforcement division. The other one is their safety audit division. The two don't talk to one another. So what they will do is the safety audit division will come out, take a look at all your training records, take a look at everything that you have, and then make a recommendations for you. If there are immediate safety issues, they will ask you to remedy those right away, but they're not going to go and let the enforcement division know. You're smiling. Do you have a different experience?
No, that's no.
Okay. All
This is
right.
funny.
Okay. So it's a real good program. I would advise taking advantage of that program, because that'll get you on the right track. The other thing that we're looking at recommending, or we are recommending, is that you develop some standard operational procedures, SOPs, for emergency operations specifically related to deployment of fire apparatus and wildland firefighting and all the types of services you provide, that you have a set of standards. And that's really important so that the firefighters know what's expected of them. Everyone knows what everyone else is supposed to do. There's no confusion. Incident command is all the same. People understand the nomenclature, all that sort of stuff. It's pretty basic stuff that needs to be addressed. The next one is outlining a succession plan. And under that, we recommend that you develop training pathways for promotion. So if someone comes in and they're a firefighter for a period of time and they want to become an engineer, what is that pathway for them to get to become engineer? And then what are those steps after the engineer steps? that they become an officer for the organization, and then chief officer or assistant chief or what have you. So developing those pathways and specifically outline what they need to do so they understand what they need to do and they can train for that. Some of the positions in the organization deserve having a position description written up so they know what their duties are and what their expectations are. And then we would also recommend some additional leadership training. We're on the right track, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
want to make sure.
Mhm.
One of the things that we had heard both internally and actually surprisingly from the public was there was a lot of emphasis on the training program. And I got to admire Wayne. He does a really excellent job with the training program, but he's a volunteer trying to do training as a volunteer and doesn't have a ton of time to pull everything together. And it's really tough in that position to be able to put together a real structured training program. So what we recommend is that you do have someone that's able to do a well-structured training program that has certification processes for each position, and that the new member orientation process is clearly outlined. There's a little bit of confusion from what we heard from people that, well, this person did it this way, this person did a little bit different. And when you have those differences, then it creates a little bit of frustration with an organization that affects the morale. And so we really recommend that you kind of line that out more specifically. And then structure a driver operator certification. And Washington State has the EVIP program that they allow you to go through. There's a classroom work that has to be done. Then there's also some driver work that in addition has to be done. In addition to that, if you're going to be a pump operator, besides just driving it, then you have to have that additional training as well. So there's a lot to that. And having that structured operator certification program is really important. Now, we hate to say this, but we recommend that you always follow NFPA standards, but not everyone can meet every NFPA standard. And when it comes to some of these standards that we're talking about, you may have to make some modifications for your organization and maybe have to not meet every bit of those standards, but at least meet the intent of those standards. That's the most important thing. Then also more importantly, in terms of communications, expectations throughout the organization is that we recommend that you have a comprehensive policy and procedure manual that includes policies for the governing body, policies for personnel, and administrative and operational policies. I know that the city has policies for personnel dealing with staff, but maybe there's some question whether that overlays onto volunteers. So that needs to be addressed. Does it overlay on volunteers or does it not? Or do you need a separate set for volunteers? So those are some of the things that we'd ask that you consider there. Patrick, anything there under our people?
You know what, I think the only thing I would add under our people is, to make it real clear to our leadership that you have a very dedicated group of individuals in your fire department, and they have a true desire to do the right thing and to be there for the community when the community needs them. And so that's, starting off, certainly we're moving forward with a lot of recommendations that we think can help move the organization forward, but you'd never be able to do that if you didn't have a group of people that really wanted to make a difference in the community, and you do have that.
Good point, thank you. Okay, our community. So the next theme is our community. And one of the things that we think would benefit both organizations is the collaboration, communication with policymakers. Meetings like this so that you're here together discussing issues and collaborating and finding solutions. So we would recommend that you have at least maybe quarterly meetings between the city and the district board, so that communication can continue. We also recommend a monthly fire chief report be written about what the status and issues that are going on within the organization, and that's given both not only the district commissioners but also city council. on a monthly basis. And we think it's important that the fire chief is liaison to the city and be present at city council meetings to be able to coordinate and communicate there as well. So all those sorts of things and other things will be a benefit for bringing the communication together. In terms of community outreach, there's maybe doing some planning for participation in a lot of the different community events so that you're committed to those and that you're showing yourself and you're educating the community about the fire protection that's within this community, what the needs are. You're there able to do volunteer recruitment, retention, that sort of thing. So we would recommend that you develop a plan, a yearly plan. Hey, we're going to hit these sorts of events within our community. We're going to do recruitment for this going forward. We were a little surprised you didn't have a fire department website. Honestly, we think that's really important that you get one and establish a fire department website, and then utilize social media as you can. I know you were talking about that at the last commission meeting too, the website.
Yeah, we have a page on the city website.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh,
And we do
okay. So
pretty aggressive social media engagement.
okay, so but maybe I missed that.
The fire
At the
district,
last district commissioners meeting, you were talking about a website.
fire district doesn't have that yet. We're in the
Oh, okay.
process of trying to get that stood up.
I see. Okay, so that would be specific to the fire district.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, my apologies. And then while you're out there participating in the community, that you measure that public engagement so you know how many people you're actually contacting and kind of see where you're at and be able to measure that going forward. Then under Patrick, anything there?
I think, one of the key important elements of the community outreach efforts and the fire department and the Volunteer Firefighters Association being engaged in the community, certainly one, helps spread the fire safety information and other risk reduction information in the community, which is obviously essential. I think exposure in the community and developing and strengthening those relationships really helps, I think, the community understand your fire department. And when you as policymakers need to make big decisions like a new fire station, that gaining that community support has already been started. And then I think the other piece that those events and that additional engagement in the community helps with is recruitment of new volunteers. And I think Richard will probably talk about that a little bit in a slide or two down the road. And I'll comment a little bit more on that when he gets there. Thank you.
Okay, and then under organizational stability is the next theme. Clarifying the roles and responsibilities between the district and the city. We had done a little research and found that municipal code was written. I'm sorry, I have a typo there. Update the interlocal agreement. The 1989 interlocal agreement is what that first bullet should say. And that interlocal agreement could be clarifying more within it and identifying, the lead. There was some confusion on our part when we read that. It talks about a fire marshal in the district and a fire chief, and I don't think you really operate that way right now. And so I think that we think that needs to be updated, looked at and updated. And then the municipal code 2.24 for volunteer fire department, I think deserves a look at as well. And then making sure that these two documents are coordinated in its terminology and its intent. So we would recommend that you look at that going forward. Strengthen and develop organizational culture. Obviously, we think you ought to adopt the mission, vision, values statements, and you use those to further the fire department's education by talking to your volunteers about it, making sure that people are aligned with it, that their behavior is in line with the values that you've set forward. And if someone's values aren't aligned with the department's values, then having the wherewithal to deal with that, even though if they're volunteers. It's kind of a tough issue. Volunteers are hard to come by, and you hate to kind of, say goodbye. But if they're not meeting those values, that speaks volumes to everyone else in your organization and creates confusion and frustration there. So We think it'd be important to implement a volunteer recognition program. There's lots of opportunities for that in doing that in public and in private as well at meetings. I know that you do some of that. I'm not saying you're not doing it at all, but I think doing more of that, that's going to encourage the volunteer recruitment and retention program, and then setting standards and then consistently enforcing those as needed. And then in terms of implementing volunteer recruitment retention, there's that's a whole another program that really needs a lot more development. There's the National Volunteer Fire Council has some really excellent resources for fire departments to just take off their website and to utilize. You can adapt it to your particular community. There's all kinds of flyers, there's public service announcements, there's social media things that you can drop in your Facebook page. Do you guys do Twitter? I think I missed that. You don't do Twitter, you do that nature. But there's a ton of resources out there. And then again, the public recognition members is also going to encourage the recruitment of volunteers. One of the things that Patrick and I'll just speak to this, Patrick, is when we came into town and we looked at the fire station and the kind of the state of it. I'll just say the state of the fire station. For a volunteer, it's not enticing for a volunteer to come to that fire station. I'll just say that. It's really, it could be cleaned up. It could be cleaned up, it could be painted, it could be rehabbed in some way so that it looks more modern. Things you can put in some racks inside the base to make sure all the equipment's off the floor. I think that sort of environment is going to be more encouraging for volunteers. So we think that doing some, spending $30,000-$40,000 or whatever it might take to do some rehab of that building, to update it a little bit, would really pay dividends going forward. So that's not a specific recommendation we have in here, but it's just kind of something we saw here. Yeah. Okay. All right, and then the next slide is organizational sustainability and facility improvement. Ensure a clean, safe, and professional looking facility, just what I spoke to. Develop a new fire station funding strategy and a schedule going forward so that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. It may not happen right now. I know you're focusing a lot of your funding on the sewer issue right now, and that makes sense. The next thing is to set the level of service and measure your performance. So the community expects to know from the city and the district what level of service they're getting, and are you able to achieve that? So setting that level, setting the types of services you're going to provide, the level of those services, and then reporting on those annually is really important. So then the next slide is, and I don't want to go into detail, but I want you to just see it. This is the draft mission vision statement that we took from the keywords that the community group and the volunteers put together for us, and a vision statement. And then this is the draft values: professionalism, teamwork, integrity, accountability. Those are all buzzwords, keywords that came out of the exercises that we did with folks. And I think it's excellent work in terms of the keywords, and probably mediocre work for Patrick and I to write this up. And you guys can build upon it. So that's a brief overview of what we've got so far in the strategic plan. There's a lot there. And I think I'd like to open it up for any questions or discussion.
Wow. I'm just thinking about what you could do to improve the firehouse.
So a little
Well, there
history,
is that.
a little history on that is we were given the directive probably, well,
6 or 8 years ago now.
no,
That's how
it's
we're
longer
counting
than that,
on
buddy.
Marianne.
Mary Ann, 20 years ago, 2013, to stop putting money into the building. And now we're 20 years later.
I was gonna say.
And that's what you're seeing. And really it goes back before that. So I've not put any money in the building. The last thing I had to put in there, we ran it through Scott and Brianna. I think I can't remember what it was, but it was something that was necessary.
Toilet.
I don't even know.
Bedroom or-
It's on
The doors,
the door,
The
the
garage
door,
door.
the auto fifteen doors. So yeah, yeah, it could use a good coat of paint. Yep. The inside, again, do we buy $20,000-$30,000 of racking that won't fit into a new station? I don't know. I've looked at it, I've priced it, it's a lot more expensive than I want to spend, but. So yeah, so on the appearance, that's what we're looking at. It's 20 years of being told not to put any money into the building. So we've accomplished that pretty decently.
One.
Leon, is that a city asset? City-owned asset?
It's shared. So, any money that goes into that building, I believe, is split between the fire district and the city,
Who
the
owns
fire
who
district.
owns the building?
the city.
Okay, that's what I want.
The fire district pays the insurance on it.
Isn't that building joint owned?
It might be, is
No,
it?
when you look
It's-
on map shifter, it says fire district 2. So I'm
Yeah,
I
it's-
believe it's joint owned.
I didn't know for
Yeah.
sure.
so that's why we split the cost.
Everything's been split.
So, yeah.
If we do stuff, we just put LED lights and that went to $230 through Amazon. And we split it with the district. So that's-
We do want to replace that building. A new fire station soon. Tough.
Seems relative, right?
Absolutely. So that's a whole other ball, that's a big old monster ball there. So the question is it worth it to put $40,000 into that building? I don't know. I can't answer that.
So just from my perspective, is it worth a volunteer coming in and blowing out an ACL, slipping on equipment on the ground?
No, I don't think the safety problems should be not taken care of. I think they should absolutely get the wires off the ground, and I don't know about coming through the ceiling, but make it safe in there, right?
Now, when you come in on a structure fire, there's a lot going through your mind when you're trying to get turnouts on and there's the cords running across the ground, and we dragged them down the highway, to be honest with you. You pull out, some of our rigs don't have the auto eject.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have the new doors, so we don't have to open them, so we're not inhaling fumes anymore when we fire up a vehicle. But you walk other buildings in this county, and there are some noticeable differences between the buildings on some other fire districts.
Yeah, we need a new building, and to Rob's point, anything that we could get for this building that could be easily moved to the new one, that's a no-brainer.
Well, let's be realistic on a timeline on a new fire hall. We don't even have a plan for funding yet. And anything we're going to be doing is going to be looking to the citizens to take on the burden of the bond or tax or something like that. So we're conservatively 5 years before we're going to start, and let alone moving in and start construction. Be realistic about it. 5 years is way too long to wring our hands on safety issues and making sure that our firefighters can get out in a timely and safe fashion. So I'm reluctant to say that that we should balk at an investment that might not go to a new hall.
And some investments, like, for example, if 5 or 10 years from now, we have a brand new shiny fire hall somewhere else, and then that building is sold to a commercial operation, if some of the improvements we put into it today can be recouped when the building is sold to someone else, great. then it's an investment, and not.
Well, I think we probably have to keep an eye on the difference between structural and safety concerns. That building isn't worth much of anything in the condition it's in now.
Sure.
But if we're talking about the safety of our crew, then that's a different matter.
Budget wise, do we have? What do we have to invest? I know you don't have it.
Well, we have over $1 million in the reserve fund that's slated, that was from the.
For the new fire.
From the timber sales, right? Then outside of that, we. Spending cash carryover revenue, which is a reserve.
Yeah, if we wanted to go back 3 to 5 years and look at the building improvement line item and get a definitive number, we could tell you that would be like the bottom line. But
I think that's a roof on there.
yeah, I think the roof is in better shape than I thought it was.
Yeah, I don't think we should hold back on safety improvements for sure.
And then protecting the equipment.
Mhm.
That does carry over too.
And hopefully the people do too, so that's safety and equipment and structural. But he's also right about like the idea of, you coat paint on the outside. If we haven't been, just the presentation of somebody who's coming and wants to volunteer with the fire department, it does matter how it looks when you walk in. It absolutely matters when you're doing that for any volunteer situation. So something to consider that may not be, we won't get our money back necessarily out of that because we painted it and then we try to sell it. That's not going to change that, but it might get somebody who decides they want to stay and volunteer as we transition to this place.
So Richard, on some of your recommendations, there was a lot of paperwork coming up with plans, and I mean, every single slide had a notebook involved,
Right.
as a product.
Yeah.
That looks intimidating to me, and I'm not the one staring down the barrel of that work.
Right.
Is there templates? Is there something that gets started? Like how do we make that job easier?
Well, I think it's unrealistic. I'm going to give you my honest opinion. It's unrealistic to expect a volunteer fire chief to do all that work, or even a part of that work. I think you're going to have to significantly do an investment in a plan to have someone working on it, either half-time or full-time, for a period of time to get things restructured and organized. Yeah, there's a ton of work to do.
So is there no templates for any of that?
Yeah, there's templates, but it isn't like you can just give it to someone as a volunteer
Right.
and say, here, do this. I mean, it's a lot of work still. There's templates for certain. But you got to have the person that has the skills, the administrative skills and the persuasion to work it through and the knowledge and get through it. So there's a lot of work to do. And I know just in the short time I know Rob, I mean, he works hard at his regular job and he's trying to do this volunteer chief thing. And he's communicated, I believe, to virtually everyone, including me, that he's ready to pass the baton. And and there's no one else really stepping up at this point that's willing to put in a ton of time. So I think my best advice would be there'd be a significant investment in some personnel time to get things kind of kick-started. Right.
Sounds like we need to start with the safety issues. Tell me if I'm wrong.
So does anybody have a punch list? Some of it seems kind of nebulous. You need to do these sorts of things as opposed to
Well,
there's
we can
A,
do that.
there's B, there's C.
We do the safety audit
Yeah.
and we're gonna fail. And it's gonna be really bad. Right.
I want to see that.
You know what I mean? And
That's
then
the
just,
idea, though.
then we have a bunch of.
Prioritize those.
Right? That's the idea,
Prioritize
you
those
get to 20
items.
things and you go,
Right.
right, so that you gotta start at that, at safety at it first,
Right,
Yeah.
and then go, this is our punch list,
let's
we're
fix it.
gonna do this.
Yeah, I think that would be probably a
Right.
good idea. Start with the safety audit.
I have a question for Patrick. Patrick, this is Dave Cox. Hey, Orange County. How many volunteer fire departments are in Orange County?
I want to say there is just the county. So the organization that I was in most of my career is the only one that has volunteers. There might be some still that have a reserve program, but there's only, I think now 7 fire departments left in the entire county. A lot of them have joined the regional agency. And I think what's important for the city council and the commissioners, that the challenges you face are the same things we hear across the country and talking to our other associates. Richard and I just mentioned, or he mentioned that we just came back from spending 2 days on a project in Idaho, working with 8 fire departments there. And a lot of the same issues, recruitment of volunteers across the country is becoming increasingly difficult. Retention of volunteers is difficult. The succession planning, 1 or 2 of the departments we worked with that were all volunteer, they're in a similar position that you have some of your senior members who are nearing the end of their tenure as volunteers, and there's nobody ready and coming up behind them. And so those are very common issues we're seeing: recruitment, retention, succession planning, training. It is really difficult in that it takes a lot of time, and over the years, a lot of state and federal mandates. Then obviously funding and the stability of funding for the organization, and in your case, a new firehouse. So you're not alone in any means in the challenges that that you're facing and your team is facing. But in Orange County specifically, the county fire department has volunteers still, and mostly running, with the exception of some very rural canyon areas. All the volunteers in the county fire department here are running mostly support type roles, squads and patrols, second out EMS, some brush fire response. They're only doing, we only have, I want to say 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 standalone volunteer stations, and they're mostly in the rural isolated canyon communities.
Okay, so, the things that Fire District 2 and Stevenson Fire face, those issues are the same issues that, say, Fire 1, Fire 5, North Bonneville, all of our individual volunteer fire departments face individually. Why don't we all fit? Why don't we do it all together? And how would you consolidate fire services for an entire county?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good question. But I think that would take some legal research and discussion with legal counsel, as well as probably looking at the geographics and the demographics of the county to see what opportunities for consolidation might exist. It
Both
doesn't.
the pluses and the minuses.
Correct.
That's another consultant study, Dave.
I'm well aware of that, but we're talking a 3 to 5 year plan here.
I mean, the key to that is you have to have some strong leadership in place to make that successful. You just can't throw together 3 or 4 fire districts and think that's gonna be the solver.
Correct.
Each fire district and department in Skamania County faces the same issues with volunteer chiefs, volunteer leadership. you know,
And that's exactly my point, Rob. And we're gonna keep having that. As we go down the road, 10, 15 years, you know, if you don't start thinking about making changes now, you're gonna get exactly what you got right now, 10 and 15 years
So
down the
let me
line.
jump in. So this is not the first time that this topic has come up. There are some examples that are working. And Rob is 100% correct. This isn't just something that gets thrown together, and there's always going to be personalities, and it's this wind of change that's going to be a hard challenge to meet. But the thing that has been kind of just stirring around here that we've been talking about, volunteerism is low, retention is hard, training is a full-time program. So this is the sort of things that say, if not this, then that. So the model right now is the wheels are starting to wobble. So how do we provide a level of service with the resources that are low all the way around? You're right. So you're not the first one to think about it. It's definitely an endeavor that we've been thinking about, but we got to talk about the right now, the 3 to 5 years,
absolutely.
and start working on getting our political clout together and be ready to have those difficult conversations. Do it the way it is, or be ready to find a way to do it better with the shared resources, our little bit, your little bit. Now we can all provide a better service, but we're not here to do that
Right,
today.
exactly.
But I'm glad that you brought it up, Dave.
Well, and I agree, Mayor. I think that we need to, number one, I think we need to address these safety issues right away. I think that's something that should be right on top of the priority list. I think if we don't, we're not doing our civic duties in positions that
We talk about employee retention and attraction, come work for the city because, stay because. It would be great to have a similar program with the fire department. So, and then, yeah, feeling good about leaving the hall, showing up at the hall.
Yep.
Having a good look in the hall.
Yeah.
Get that, feel good. Feel good about being a volunteer.
Chief, how do you feel about using some of that 1 million plus money to do that? To do some of the renovations down at the fire hall?
Yeah, I mean, we have to do something. Yeah, I'm making a list right now of stuff that we can.
Twice.
Already.
Right. Liana?
You know,
I'm already working on a budget amendment.
I was wondering, I would make it, so the funds that are in that are just for use with the fire district, it doesn't like, or is it just for building new fire hall? Was it earmarked for the
So,
new fire hall?
so
Because
it's
the work
earmarked
how it showed
for,
up Matters.
it's earmarked for fire department capital items. So the
Okay,
fire
so it could
hall,
go,
the
yeah,
fire apparatus,
Sure.
it was tried. It was ideally for the fire hall and whatever was needed for that.
okay. I just want, just.
Yeah, we got about
The idea of making sure.
600,000 in there for that fire engine that we've been saving up for, since 2001. We
Right.
don't have a place to
Right.
put the new,
Sure, you
like
can put it
our
there.
fire engine
Yeah.
right now, we should have replaced it.
Right.
a Couple years ago.
Yeah.
And transitioned it into a second out. But we don't have a place. to put it.
Location doesn't work,
Yeah.
right?
There's 1.6 million in there.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I just didn't know, like I said, being newer on the council, I didn't know whether that was earmarked specifically, like you sometimes, you raise money or you get money for this and you can't go outside of the
Well, and
line.
it's grown too, because Liana, when she came on to the city and got her feet underneath of her, she asked me, what do we do with the budget that we don't spend?
Mhm.
And I said, it goes back to the general fund. And she's like, well, we can put it into this fund.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes, please do that. So,
No, that's great.
We-
Gives us
we-
options.
I mean, it's the stuff that's budgeted. It's not, we're not asking for a certain amount of money every year in the budget to go into that. It just rolls over.
Yeah.
There was some budgeting rules for a long time where we set aside 25,000
25.
for specifically for the new fire engine.
And that's still being done as well.
Yeah.
Right. Until we get the space and then, yeah,
Yeah. And the problem is the prices of fire engines and lead times keep going up. So,
everything. Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, you gotta,
Okay. Well, no, I just want to make sure that, I mean, if it's something that's available as far as, upgrading what we have now to make it safe, to make it more presentable.
Well, when we were, can't say serious, when we, we pared down the plan, looked at a way to budget a fire hall.
Mhm.
That nugget of $1 million was always in the mix
Sure.
for the hall.
Sure.
But don't forget that we found ourselves in a pickle for ignoring maintenance at the wastewater plant.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yes, the idea of spending money that can't be utilized later. I think we got some things we can't get trapped.
I think
Personally,
the other thing that we also need to be cognizant of is Fire District 2. They're paying half the cost or whatever those upgrades are, and I don't know what their budget is. And our levying capacity is more flexible than Fire District 2. So.
Right.
We do, if there is a budget problem on their end, could we do a loan?
We could work something out.
Intergovernmental law.
I mean, this might be an unpopular comment at this point. But when I was doing the call volume and the assets for my presentation that I gave to the stakeholders, the 50-50 is weighted too heavy. It's not 50-50. The fire district share should be way less. The fire district provides the majority of the apparatus, runs probably a 2/3 less calls in the fire district. But that's up to you guys to start those discussions. It's come up several times over the years. And it never gets traction. So
But Chief, it also comes back to the infrastructure has to be in place
mhm,
in order to be able to respond.
yes.
So Fire District 2 needs to rely on the city, and the city needs to rely on Fire District 2 for response. It's just like the radio system.
Yeah.
Just like the radio system.
It's
You have
not
to have,
50-50 though.
well, as far as the use goes, correct. But
So the 50-50 goes, so 50-50 billing, it only goes to stuff that goes to the firefighters, turnouts, the pension, stipends, insurance, stuff if it's for the building down here, we'll do 50-50. I can't remember, it's about 25,000 a year is what we almost probably 98 to 99% is we buy that through the city, and then the city does a quarterly itemized billing to the fire district to get that 50-50 back. So we're on top of that pretty good. So, but when you're talking about large investments like, $30,000 to $40,000, then that's significant. It's, I only brought it up because when I put the numbers in the chart, it's obvious that the balance is off, and that conversation needs to be had at some point with the fire district commissioners and the city council. The interlocal agreement might be a good time to do that.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the city district that shares services, and in their contract, they have metrics that they use to determine how they're going to allocate. So population between the two is evaluated, the percentages, the valuation, the service demand, the amount of equipment that each of them own. And I think it's those 4 factors. And then they're each given a weighted average, and then that determines the percentage. It's a little bit more distributive and a little bit more fair in looking at it more broadly rather than just one factor.
Yeah. I'm pretty positive that, Leona, you've dealt in this before with white salmon. We're not too different from where Leona come from before with the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're actually going for regional fire authority right now. And I don't know when the vote was or for it to happen, but
I think they have one more meeting and then I'll put it on the November ballot.
Yeah, so that's maybe a model to look at.
Definitely.
And I think that model is just a more formal interlocal agreement that we have going on. So.
So on the regional, even though I didn't want this meeting to get derailed on that topic, it is something that we should all be kind of chewing on a little bit as a way to make the most of our resources. So not poo-pooing the idea just at this meeting, but it would be cool to have a longer, more in-depth discussion soonish.
Other options are the city gets annexed to the fire district too. Another way to go about it.
I don't want to do a live District 2.
So as far as trying to put a button on the strategic plan, what's the next step?
So the next step is we're going to take our draft that we currently have. We're going to have staff look at it and give us some feedback and then make some modifications. And maybe that happens a couple different times. Or after the second time around, maybe then it's broadened out and shared with the commissioners and the city council members at that point. I'm not sure exactly what your internal plan is, but our plan is we'll have a draft for you probably in about a week or less, and then we'll give it to the chief and Leon, and then they will review it and give us some feedback.
Okay, because we've gone through the strategic plan at the council level and then just recently with Public Works. So I saw a lot of recommendations. Is the next step some marching orders? Like this is what you have assigned as a
and
priority. These are, you have,
We have recommended a short-term, medium-term, long-term implementation program, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Again, it's up to you though, how you want to implement that. So if you decide that something we had thought is in a medium term, meaning 3 to 4 years, you might go, no, we want to do that within a year.
All right,
We're
so
moving that one up.
as long as we get something out of
Yeah.
move out of the recommendation phase.
Yes,
and get something
absolutely.
that's tangible and
Yeah.
you know, you can take a bite out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. One other thing I wanted to add, since Patrick brought up the Blaine County in volunteer recruitment, this issue of volunteer recruitment is, we hear it with all of our clients all across the country. Working in Bishop, California, they're having the exact same problem. They can't keep volunteers. They're desperately trying to figure out what to do. Blaine County, Idaho, where we just came from, same situation. One fire district, North Blaine County Fire Protection District, is building 6 2-bedroom homes around a fire station for people to live in, pay low amount of rent, like $450 a month rent, but otherwise they stay there. And then they are committed to, when they're available, to respond to calls and clean the station and take care of the grounds. So
We do that?
well, I'm just
The state
saying
of Washington used to have a major property tax break for volunteer firefighters, and that went away 20-25 years ago or so. I think volunteer firefighters paid about 70% of the property tax that they were supposed to.
So there's some innovative things
Yeah.
that are out there that people are trying, because this is a big problem all across the nation.
All right. I'm not sure what our projected timeline for this meeting. We're at an hour. Does anybody have any final thoughts or concerns? Other? Okay.
Rob, you say you're starting a list of safety issues. Can you put a cost on those? And forward that cost on to Leona so she can put it on the agenda?
Yeah.
Because I'm really curious as to what the priorities are, what the costs are, so that we can have something as a council to discuss to get those things taken care of, or at least start that process.
I mean, some of them I'm not gonna wait.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
Okay.
I spend more than that they're gonna cost. But yeah, I'll put together a list.
Does that list include need to have, like to have? Or are we still in the phase of need to have?
Well, it'd be like, you know, having that electrician come in and put a drop down for the two cords that weren't already dropped down.
How do we go about doing that? Do we have a small works roster that we do that with? Leona?
Yeah, we work with electricians. Colburn and Kitchen Electric, Kitchen's not doing very much work lately, but
Covers all over the place.
yeah.
How does he get authorization to get that taken care of?
He
He just does it
Yeah,
and- as a chief, and
It's like directors, yeah, you have.
so he doesn't need any kind of council.
It'll be the
Go for it.
bigger-
No, not right now. It-
Up
It's
to a certain amount.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
there's,
Putting racks and different things that would be.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, he has a certain amount in his budget already and it hasn't been spent out. And the way that we budget as well, it's at the fund level, so it's not at the department level. So there's room within the general fund for him to make additional purchases. And then I try to true things up. Understanding, I mean, the path forward is there was consensus for him to move forward on safety issues. So that's how I operate as well. It's like, okay, well, there's agreement that those need to be addressed. If there is questionable things, that's a different story.
Yeah, typically what I do is I'll put an Excel sheet together with a list and then put out, you know, dates, timeline, like a little mini project outline, costs, whether or not I'm gonna do it right now, or if I need to come to council, or probably come to council, because we'll probably spend it through the city and then do the back billing, but the commissioners would get an update as well, a heads up.
So I think that the important thing, an important takeaway from this is, yes, there has been this ribbon of don't spend money at the hall. But that's not working. And hopefully you get the message that at the city level, we don't want that policy to continue to a degree. We're not gonna, shore up walls and stuff. You get what I'm trying to say. The safety part, the things, we're ready, we need to spend some money. So let's do that.
Yeah.
And you've got the backing of the city.
On that, absolutely.
And I would encourage the chief to reach out to Labor and Industries and order the safety audit as soon as possible.
Did I tell you what I used to do?
Did you do a safety audit?
We're not calling Labor and Industries.
Uh,
You know what he does? He knows why.
Is that what you do?
No,
He's
not
in
that.
HR. so.
Yeah. It'll be good. Rob knows what he's doing. We'll
Those
get,
is not a.
Yeah.
It's a cringe factor for safety guys and HR guys, but yeah, you're right. That's a good resource. I don't know if we're ready for that. You're right.
Let's pick some things up
You're
first,
ready.
and then we'll
We'll
tell
do a good
cursory.
lean manufacturing scrub
There you go.
sort activity first, and then we'll see what we want to do there. So.
All right. Are we good?
Yes.
I appreciate that, all the fire district, everybody coming in. It's great. I haven't had this since I've been on the council anyway, and I thought it was good.
I appreciated candor. Just being able to speak freely.
Yeah, it was good.
We meet every Monday. And we need volunteers, so.
You want some candor? I need your volunteers.
You're looking at me, Rob, but I can't, so I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Unless anybody has any more thoughts before I swing this gavel.
The only thing I can say is this council and the district should communicate more often. You guys need to have a yearly or 6-monthly
Quarterly.
meeting.
Quarterly?
Something, I've been around here a long time and there's never been this kind of communication as in here today. I'm almost 40 years. And I think this is the first time I've ever seen the council and the district really sit down and kind of talk about a plan. And then one thing that would really help, I see, Does the council know what they own and what the district know, and the city will know what the district owns? Because like if the city own, or the district owns half of that building, they own 5 out of 7 vehicles that you guys get use of, and they own their own station up there. They own a lot more as in assets than what the city has contributed over the last, 50 years. So that's what I like to see here today is this. So that's all I got.
That's fine. All right, everyone, thanks very much for coming. 7:06, meeting adjourned.